welcome to episode 7 of the Charlie Chats Footy podcast with me, Charlie Casson. If you're new to the podcast, hello, thank you for listening. I'm sure we'll have a few Sheffield Wednesday fans on this one because this is episode 7 with actor Thomas Craig, born and bred in Sheffield, massive Sheffield Wednesday fan. It's a great episode. I just got to tell you first, Tom explains it in the pod briefly, but I just want to let you know how we met because I think it's really special. So 2 years ago, I was on my way to Grimsby to watch Barnet, and I got on the train in London, sat on a table with these two lads with a few of my Barnet mates. One of them happened to be Thomas. We get chatting, we're talking about Barnet, he's talking about Wednesday, he was on his way to Hull City, and yeah, we got talking. First half hour we were just talking about football, and then I found out he was an actor. Then I told him I was an actor, and one of the guys I was doing a play with at the time knew him, and he just done a play with one of my mates, Ben. Had all these people in common, exchanged numbers, and I've been mates with him ever since. And the nicest thing for me was 2 weeks later I went to Dublin. Barnet were playing Chesterfield on the last day of the season, and I couldn't go obviously because I wasn't in the country. But Thomas texted me and said, "Can you get me a ticket? I want to go down to the game with your dad." It was a massive game. We had to stay up on the last day. We got relegated. So Tom's actually seen Barnet get relegated, which, yeah. But yeah, he asked for my dad's number, and he texted my dad, and he wanted to meet my dad and go to the game with him. So him and my dad met up at the ground, never met before, and had a beer before the game, and then watched the game together. So, yeah, it was just a really special way to meet someone, especially in the industry, and someone who was passionate about football as I am. Who then could just go and 2 weeks later go to a game with my dad and just have a beer. So yeah, it was a great way to meet him, and we've been mates ever since. And he's an absolute legend. He's so funny. He's got some absolute crackers of some stories. We chat about his earliest football memories. We talk about how he got twatted in the face at Portsmouth away when he was in Corrie. He tells us a story about himself and Des Walker being refused entry into a nightclub, which you do not want to miss because it is absolutely hilarious. And he chats about the time he got put on the show report after one of the nights of his play for leaving halfway through the performance to go and watch a Sheffield Wednesday game in a pub opposite the stage door, which is just unbelievable scenes. If you are listening to this right now, right this second, screenshot it, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever, and whack it on Twitter, whack it on Instagram, tag at CharChatsFooty on Twitter or at CharlieChatsFooty on Instagram. I want to see where you are listening to it. I want to see who's listening to it. So yeah, make sure you take a screenshot, tag us on Twitter, tag us on Instagram, drop us a message, and I'm going to retweet all of them. Please don't forget to follow on all of the socials, Facebook, Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram. Keep supporting it, keep sharing it. If you are on Apple, please drop a little message on a little rating on Apple Podcasts, little review. It does the wonders for the podcast. Yeah, but thank you so much, everyone. Legends, a lot of you. This is episode 7 of the Charlie Chats Footy podcast with the legend. He is Thomas Craig. Enjoy. Thomas Craig, how you doing, mate?
Very good, thanks, Charlie.
We're going to go back right to the beginning, all right? So I want to know when your love for Sheffield Wednesday began. Well,
my love for football is as far back as I remember. I was born in the early 60s. So I grew up in Sheffield in an old-fashioned two-down terrace, cobble street, outside toilet, tin bath. Was living in that till I was 10 years old, really. But the street was just full of kids. I was probably the only child on the street. So I had loads of mates, and all I remember is we played football in the streets the whole time. And obviously there weren't that many cars around, so you could play pretty much undisturbed in the street back in the day.
You any good?
Yeah, I wasn't bad, I think. Yeah, not bad. But also, I never remember learning to read. I just read football reports in newspapers from an early age. I never remember learning to read Janet and John or ABC. I could just read. And it is when I was a kid at junior school, I used to write football match reports. And I always used to think I wanted to be a football journalist. I still think that's probably the best job in the world. So when it came to assemblies, because we used to have to do an assembly once a week, I was always picked to read because I could read. And I think that kind of got me into a love of performing as an actor later in life, having done that as a kid.
Do you remember your first Wednesday game?
Uh, I've got a football programme from 1965, September, and it's a reserve game. It's Sheffield Wednesday versus Preston North End. And my dad wrote on it Craig's first match, because my real name is Craig Thompson. But I flipped that when I had to join Equity to Thomas Craig, who's an old ex-Sheffield Wednesday player who was one of my first heroes in the early 70s. He was called Tommy Craig. So, my first game was there. I don't remember that. But my dad used to take me late 60s. I remember the first two games I saw was Wednesday Liverpool 1-1, Wednesday West Ham 1-1. And when you're that young, I just thought every football game ended 1-1. Do you know what I mean? And then I remember watching Wednesday get relegated from the old Division 1 in 1970. We played Man City last game of the season at home, and we had to draw, and we lost 2-1. And that led to the bleak period of the 70s that Wednesday went through. But my dad would also take me to, like my dad's generation and his dad, they were all Wednesday fans, but that kind of generation went to watch Sheffield United one week, Sheffield Wednesday the next week, because nobody went to away games then. So he did take me to Bramall Lane a couple of times as a kid, but I don't know, the draw was just Hillsborough. I mean, Wednesday's ground was so unique with the big cop that was like a wild bank and no seating, no roof. And it just, and Wednesday were only getting 10,000 in the 70s. And I don't know why, because Sheffield United were a good team, actually. They had Tony Curry, who you obviously are aware of. He was like the best player that Wednesday or Sheffield United had during the 70s. And United, I think they finished 5th in Division 1 in 1972, something like that. So to be a Wednesday fan, it was pretty bleak times in the 70s growing up.
When do you make that decision then? I wanted to touch on the rivalry with Sheffield United later, but you sort of brought it up. So being, born in Sheffield, how do you make that decision? Which end to go down?
I don't know. It's just my dad was a Wednesday fan. His dad was a Wednesday fan. And I think in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, I think that tribalism started to come in. So whereas people would not go and watch the other team, and I was just a Wednesday fan from like so far back. And that was it. I mean, I had a lot of pals who were United fans at school, and we were all mixed. But there was a very big rivalry, and it's got really worse actually. The last few years. I mean, last season the Sheffield Derby was the most expensive policed football match in England. Not excluding the Glaswegian Derby, but yeah, there was loads of trouble at both games, and it's got ridiculous because there's only 500,000 people in Sheffield, 450,000, and everybody kind of knows somebody who supports the opposite team. But on a derby day, it is lockdown and helicopters are in the air and everything. It's pretty grim.
How far is Hillsborough from Bramall Lane?
Well, Bramall Lane is. Have you been to Bramall Lane?
I've been Bramall Lane, yeah. Yeah,
well, you know where that is from the city centre. It's only a 10-minute walk to the train station. Whereas Wednesday's ground is 3 mile to the north of the city. You have to get a tram and it's out of the city centre. It's
not like Goodison Park and Anfield.
No.
I mean, it's a bit of a way.
No, not at all. They're quite far apart. But Sheffield's not a big city, but it's. I mean, as an away fan, you think it's a trek getting out to Hillsborough.
So when you play each other, do they have to what's it like in terms of, travel and getting to the game and stuff? Do they shut off certain bus routes, or I don't know? How does it work?
No, the cops usually round up. There'll always be a mob of hooligans, and the cops always try and get them tied up. But the Sheffield United fans brought a video out last year, a 10-minute video called "This City Is Ours: The Steel City Derby," and it's worth a look because it's pretty eye-opening. And it's from a Sheffield United perspective, and it's at Bramall Lane, the game. But then there's a bit where all the Wednesday fans arrive, on a mass police escort, and it's crackers. It's crazy. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
I got to bring this up. You mentioned there about the police and the rivalry between Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United and stuff. Now, there's a interview on a Canadian TV show that you've done.
Oh yeah, George Strombolopoulous.
Yeah, where he puts you in the shit on the spot, really. I don't know. Were you expecting him? I'll explain to everyone what it was in a minute. But were you expecting him to ask you that?
No, not at all. I was on his show to talk about Murdoch Mysteries and my career as an actor, and he totally blindsided me. Started talking about me getting arrested at football.
Your face says it all in that video, to be fair. I'll put a link in the description of this episode so people can have a look at it.
Oh, thanks, man.
So what we got to talk about it. What was it like?
I mean, when you grew up in the 70s and the 80s, sometimes It was unavoidable. And my first away game without my dad was, I think I was 14, went to Swindon away on a coach with all my pals. And my first away game ever had been 2 years before that, about 1973, Villa Park. And it was a second replay against Crystal Palace. We'd drawn at Hillsborough, drawn at Selhurst, and then it was Villa Park was the third game. And Wednesday won 3-2. And the atmosphere, we were on the Holt end. Wednesday took about 12,000. I think the attendance was 19. So we outnumbered the Palace fans. They were a Division 1 team at the time. And I was immediately hooked. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling when you've gone to an away game for the first time. And it was like, I want to go to every away game. Mm-hmm. And I was just hooked into football. And then when I started going without my dad when I was 14, 15, you just see things that you probably wouldn't have seen if you were just you and your dad going, you know what I mean? And I remember I must have been 19, and Wednesday played away at Cambridge. And whenever we played in that neck of the woods, we'd always stop in Stamford on the way home for a drink. Stamford's a beautiful little town in Lincolnshire, little market town. And this particular game, I used to go on a coach every week, and this coach, the lad didn't run a coach trip to this particular game. So my mate, who was 2 years younger than me, he was 17, but he was a full-on hooligan at the time. He said, "Tom, I've got us a lift on a van." So meet to this van, and it's 14 lads, and they're all hardcore hooligans. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a day. So anyway, we get to Stamford in the evening, and we get into a big row in a pub. And instead of leaving Stamford and going back to Sheffield, we go to another pub in Stamford. And by this time, the pub's surrounded by locals. The police escort us out of town, and they eventually take all our names and addresses. And I think they nicked 11 of us out of the 14 on the van. And we all went to court. Oh, God, I was terrified. And I went to court every day in a suit and tie, and everybody else has got, like, skinheads and tattoos and that. And I was the only one out. I think they nicked 11 from Sheffield and 1 from Stamford. And we went to Newark Crown Court, and I was the only one who got not guilty. And it was terrifying. So were
you acting at this point?
No, I didn't start acting until about a year after. I started doing amateur, dramatics in Sheffield about a year after. Yeah, but I'd signed up with the acting group. They were doing Theseus, Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream, yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't have enough men, so I said I'd do it, and I'd only done a couple of lessons. And I remember that the court case was going to clash with the actual play, and I had to tell the acting guy, I said, "Look, mate," I said, I'm in court in Newark every day. I might not come back on the Friday, because that was the day the court ended. He's like, "What do you mean?" Oh God, it was. So I just started acting then. Yeah, when I got nicked in it. God, this sounds awful. When I got done in Ipswich, it wasn't actually football. It was the night before, and I went up from London to meet all my Sheffield pals, and we had a drink in Ipswich town centre, which is quite a boring place. Norwich is a great night out, but Ipswich is not a great night out. And anyway, it got to 1 o'clock, and we were on our way back to our hotel, and we saw one last bar that was open till 2. So we went in this bar, and it was the worst thing we ever did. It was full of locals, and it just got all a bit carried away outside. And we ended up having a row in a car park, and I got nicked. But it wasn't football related. The police let me out the cells, and I actually went to the match the next day. But what was funny, when he took my details in the cell, he said, "Have you got any previous?" I said, No. And he come back and he said, "I think you'll find you have." I said, "What, 1982? I said, "That's 23 years ago." I said, "I'm hardly prolific, mate."
What happened at, tell me the story. I remember you telling me about what happened at Portsmouth when you was in Corrie.
Oh God, Charlie, can we... So at Portsmouth, I was on Coronation Street, and I'd been on Corrie since October, and this game was in the April. And Portsmouth, I think if they won, they were about to not clinch the title, but they would have clinched promotion. So it was like a big day for Pompey. And it was 15 minutes from the end. Portsmouth were winning 1-0, and the stadium announcer announced to the Portsmouth crowd, "Please stay off the pitch at the end of the game." And as he said that, Wednesday equalised, and we were already relegated at this point. We equalised, and then last kick of the game, we won. So we won 2-1. Pissed on Portsmouth's party. Have you ever been to Portsmouth, Charlie?
Yeah, I've been Fran Park behind the goal.
Yeah, you come out of the away end and there's all terraced houses down the side, isn't there?
It's awful.
Awful. So we've come out of the ground And Wednesday don't have any mad fans there that day. It was mainly normal fans, blah, blah. And the Pompey lads were just like, they were frothing at the mouth as we come out of the ground. And everybody's got their heads down, walking past. And I heard this Portsmouth lad, he looked at me and he went, that's that cunt off the TV. Because on Corrie, I used to wear Wednesday paraphernalia and stuff. And I've gone, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm going to get killed here. And all my pals who I can see, they've just got their heads down and they're walking past. And I'm like, oh no. So as I'm about to plead for my life, somebody hit me from the side, from the left-hand side, and just chinned me. So immediately, two coppers dragged this kid and me to one of these terraced houses in the garden. And all the Pompey fans were then throwing coins at us. And this little woman comes out of her house and she goes, stop throwing fucking coins. They waited till the crowd dispersed. They took me back to the train station in the Mariah, and they've got the kid who's hit me in the back of the van. And I've said to the cops, I said, look, I don't want to press charges, whatever. And they said, we saw him do it. We've got to nick him. So they get to the train station, and I'm having a chat with the cops. And he's kind of sobered up, this lad. He was drunk in the back of the Mariah. And he's looked and he's listening, and he went, yeah, can I get your autograph, mate? I want you can fuck off. The coppers were pissing themselves. So about a month later, I got a cheque from Portsmouth Magistrates Court for £100 damages. His name, I'll never forget his name. He was called Sean Small. So if there's any Pompey fans listening to this and they know Sean Small, I owe him a drink.
That's all right, isn't it? £100. No, that's your day out paid for to Portsmouth. Match ticket and all that.
It was a good punch and I took it well.
Sean Small, if you're listening, mate, get in touch. We can we'll sort you out a drink once this lockdown's over.
So, but when I got on Corrie, what I realised is the Coronation Street producers, they don't very rarely mention Man United or Man City, because at the time City weren't very good, and I don't think they wanted to alienate anybody in Manchester by like bullying up Man United. So there was not much football reference, but my character in the show and my family, we were on a witness protection scheme from Sheffield. So I thought, well, I'll make him a Wednesday fan. And I started wearing, you could buy your own costume. You go and get a T-shirt. Can I wear this? And I'd get these shirts. They weren't overtly football shirts, but if you knew football, you knew they meant football. I had a blue shirt that had Hurst and a number 9 on the breast. So all the Corrie lads, all the Manx, they were like, have you managed to work Sheffield Wednesday into the script? I said, I don't know. It's just happened by osmosis.
That's quality. I love that. You mentioned at the start about playing, how you used to play when you were younger. Talk to me about when you got managed by Graham Taylor.
Oh, right, the match, yeah. Well, I played all my life. I played for school. I played Sunday mornings in Sheffield. And then when I went to drama school in 85, I obviously started playing Saturdays and Sundays in London. I'd only ever played Sundays in Sheffield because I went to football. But living in London and not being able to afford to go back to Sheffield, I did watch Wednesday when they were in London, but I didn't watch them in regular because I started playing Saturdays. So I've always played. I played Saturdays and Sundays till I was 35, and then I played Sundays till I was 50. But when I was on Corrie, Sky One, they did a TV show, a reality show called The Match. They did it for 3 years. And I heard about it through an actor friend of mine called Rocky Marshall. Now, I don't know if you know Rocky. He used to be in Family Affairs, Holby. Rocky looks a bit like Roger Daltrey. If you ever make a life story of Roger Daltrey, Rocky could play him. So Rocky had been invited to this match. And I asked around on Coronation Street, and Bradley Walsh had been invited to play. I don't know if you know, Bradley was a good player. He played at Brentford when he was a kid. Yeah. But Bradley had an injured knee.
He played for Barnet as well, Bradley Walsh.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he played. I think he played one or two games.
Yeah, I know he'd been at Brentford as a kid. Yeah, but he had a bad knee, so he couldn't do this Sky match. So I went to the producers and I said, "Is there any chance I can take Bradley's place and represent Coronation Street and do this?" And they said, "Yeah, they give me a week off." So I think they invited 20 celebrities, what have you, and ex-sports stars from other sports. They didn't know if we could play football, and it turned out we had a really good side. And Graham Taylor was the manager. It was like we went to Newcastle United's training ground and we lived there. They rigged it up, and so we lived for a week and trained, and then we played the match on the Sunday against a team of ex-pros at Newcastle. And they didn't think it was going to be. They didn't know how much success it was going to be. But they sold out the whole ground, 52,000. They'd sold it out before we even started the show. So it was always going to be popular live. And I think they also got like 2.5 million viewers throughout the week. And what would happen was Graham would nominate 3 players each night to go on the bench, and then the public would vote one off. So by the end of the week, we had 16 players left, and we had 2 goalkeepers. We had Mark Bosnich, he was our pro, he was the goalie. And our backup goalie was a comedian called Terry Alderton. Do you know Terry?
Nah.
Do you know who he is?
Nah, I've never heard of him.
Oh, you should get him on this. He's an actor, comedian, but he used to be on London's Burning, and he's a big Southend fan. So all week, Terry's been rubbish. He's rubbish in goal. And like we've got me and Alex Stewart with the centre halves, Ben Shepherd, Jonathan Wilkes, Harvey, Darren Campbell, Ralph Little. Really, we had a really good team, and the ex-pros didn't take us serious. They'd been in Newcastle all week, and they were just getting pissed up and blah, blah, blah. And they were predicting on TV they were going to beat us 10-0 and what have you. So on the night, the game comes, and Bosnich, he injured his groin in the first 20 minutes. So we're all like, oh, shit, man. And Terry comes on, and he had a blinder. He saved everything. He had this unbelievable game. And we were 0-0 just before half-time, and Gary Pallister hit one from about 30 yards, and it just bounced in front of Terry. It was the only mistake he made, and they went 1-0 up just before half-time. And second half, I think they had Bruce Grobbelaar in goal, and they replaced Bruce Grobbelaar with Peter Bonetti about 20 minutes from the end. And the last 5 minutes, we get a free kick just inside their half, out towards the touchline, and Johnny Wilkes, he punts it, and he said it were a shot, but it were a cross, and it just drifted to the top corner, so 1-1. And we went crackers. We were all celebrating with Graham Taylor on the line. And then they got the winner with the last kick of the game from a corner that Ali McCoy scored. So we lost 2-1, but we did ourselves really proud, you know what I mean? So
and that's in front of a sold-out St. James's.
Yeah, 52,000, mate. It was really hard to go and play Sunday morning football again after you'd been in that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. God, that must have been an incredible experience.
Oh, it was incredible. So the next year, I was the oldest in the team, I think. I think I was a bit older than Alex Stewart, even though he looks older than me. He's like a man, Alex Stewart, you know what I mean? He's made of iron. The next year, they paid us $2,000 for the week for that. And the next year, they invited 40, 45 lads to the trial. You had to go and trial to get your place in the squad again. And the money went up to $10,000. And then for the third year, there was 70-odd people at the trial. People like Timmy Mallet, the lead singer out of Curiosity Killed the Cat. They couldn't even kick a ball. But it was that popular. We got paid $15,000 for the week for the last time. So wow. My missus was like, get down to the gym, get fit. On the last game, we lost 2-1, 2-0 and 2-0. And on the last game, the producer said, you've got to get a draw or you've got to win for this to carry on. We lost 2-0. Some parts of the game, we didn't even have a kick of the ball, you know what I mean? It was hard to get near them. But we did well. We did all right.
Oh, mate, that sounds like an amazing experience. There's days where I just sit back and get so disappointed that I'll never know the feeling of like running out at a big stadium that's sold out.
Charlie, I'll tell you what, we train all week. On the third year, because they were pumping more money into it, they took us to Marbella for a week. So we were training in Marbella. And they looked after us like proper pros. But in the second game, I'm at the bar, because the party after the show was at the Malmaison on Newcastle's quayside. And I'm at the bar with my missus, and Kenny Dalglish walks in, and the first person he sees is me. And I've never met Kenny Dalglish before. He'd been in the crowd, and he was just at the game. And he comes up and he shakes my hand and he says, "Great game, Tommy. Great game. Have you met the wife, Marina?" And I'm like, "No, Kenny, I've never met your wife. I've never met you, mate." But I said to Siobhan, I says, "Kenny Dalglish had just told me I had a great game. That's brilliant."
That's class. So when you were in Marbella and stuff, how much were the cameras on? Were they on all the time?
Yeah, training and stuff. Yeah. They did stuff. They took us out deep sea fishing. There was other stuff going on. You know what I mean? And
is that anywhere to watch? I'd love to watch that.
Do you know what? I've got the DVDs, but I don't. I've looked online and I've never found it. You know, I don't know if it is online.
It sounds cracking.
Yeah, and in the third game, I was marking Ian Rush, and he scored a back post header. And after the game, I got all texts from all my pals. "Oh, how did you let Rush get away from you at the back post?" And I'm like, Ian Rush has scored against better centre halves than me.
I bet he done you for pace as well, did he?
Yeah, it was a pretty slow game because all the ex-pros were in their 40s. You know what I mean? They had to be retired. Yeah. But the last back four we played against was Colin Hendry, Des Walker, Dennis Irwin, and Nigel Winterburn. And they were all fit as... You know, they were fit. They were still really, really fit. So, we never had a chance.
You mentioned Des Walker there.
Oh right, yeah.
Tell us all about the story. I've not heard this yet, but I know you've mentioned it to me before, and I am absolutely buzzing to hear it.
Well, I hope you're not disappointed, Charlie. So, back in the early 90s, about 94, one of my best pals from drama school is a Leeds United fan. So, he's called John House. So, John and I, we've gone up to Sheffield for a weekend to see Wednesday versus Leeds. It was 3-3. It was a great game. So, on the Saturday night, I've took John round town in Sheffield, and there was this famous nightclub, if people know Sheffield, called Josephine's. But you had to get dressed up to get in Josephine's. You had to have a jacket on, shoes, trousers. You couldn't get in trainers. It wasn't like the Lead Mill or the Limit. Anyway, we're in the VIP champagne bar in Josephine's. And I said to John, some of the footballers might come here tonight. And as I said that, Chris Waddle and Gordon Watson walk into the bar. Now, I don't know if you remember Gordon Watson. He was called Flash. His nickname was Flash. He played for Wednesday, Southampton, Charlton. But we just signed him. He's a young lad. So anyway, we're having a drink. And my mate John says, I'm going to go and talk to them. And I'm like, John, don't. So anyway, he talks to Waddle and he calls me over. So I wander across. And at the time, I used to have an advert on TV for Radion washing powder it was for Radion. And I got dragged by a tractor in a yellow football shirt. A lot of football fans remember this advert. It was on all the time. So I wander across and Chris Waddle says, my kids love the advert. And I'm like, oh, he knows who I am. So we had a beer with Chris and Gordon, and for some reason, the next week, Wednesday, we're playing in a friendly at Enfield in North London.
Yeah, I know Enfield.
I'm guessing you know Enfield.
Yeah, not far at all.
Yeah. So Chris invites me to go and see this game at Enfield. So I go, and all the players, they've all got to have a meal in the bar after, and Wednesday had a really good side at that time, 94. And as the meal's coming to an end, they're all trying to get away to a club. So Chris Waddle says to me, he says, do you want to come to Charlie Chan's? And it was a nightclub under Walthamstow Dogs. Does that ring a bell, were you?
Yeah, the Walthamstow Dogs. I'm not sure it's there anymore, the Walthamstow
No, I think
Dogs.
it got closed. The dog track's gone, but I think Charlie Chan's went as well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, where's that? Walthamstow? I don't even know where Walthamstow is. So I look around, and by now there's a couple of Spurs players turned up. There's Jason Dezelle, Paul Walsh, all the Wednesday players. And I look round, and everybody's suited and booted, apart from me, who's got jeans on and a pair of trainers, and Des Walker. And me knowing about nightclubs and that, I'm thinking, I'm getting in a taxi with Des Walker. Because if they stop me, they've got to stop Des Walker from getting in the club. So we get to Charlie Chan's, and the bouncers are like, you two are not coming in. And Des Walker, you never hear him interviewed on TV, but he talks non-stop in real life. He's like non-stop. He's like, do you know who I am and all this? And the bouncer's like, I don't give a fuck who you are. You're not coming in trainers and jeans. So all the players have gone in by now. They're all laughing at me and Des Walker. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, this is miles from Wandsworth. I'm not even going to get in this nightclub. So as we like trying to get in this club, and Des Walker's like, I've played for England, blah, blah, blah. A woman's leaving the club and she says to the bouncer, do you know who he is? And the bouncer went, yeah, I don't give a fuck who he is. So she says to me and Des Walker, she says, do you want to come to my house? You can borrow some of my husband's trousers. So this woman lives around the corner. She takes us into her house. We go in her bedroom and her husband's asleep. And she puts the light on and he wakes up and he's like, well. And he's like, me and Des Walker in his bedroom. And she gets in his wardrobe and she gives us both a pair of trousers to get into this club. So we go back and she says, just leave the trousers behind the bar. I know the bar staff. So we go back and he lets us in. And every time I saw Des Walker after that, he'd say, Tom, do you remember that club when we had to get the geezer's trousers?
Oh my God.
Oh, he's hilarious, mate.
Did the guy in the bed know who Des Walker was, or you?
Yeah. He woke up and he was half asleep, and he's like, "Is that Des Walker?" So that guy probably went to work the next day and said, "Lads, you'll never guess what happened to me last night." Des Walker. That's a true story.
That's mental. He must have thought he was like in some sort of dream or a daze.
Oh no, yeah, crazy man. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So Des Walker, when you saw Des Walker after, he like talks about it, does he?
Yeah, I used to know that squad quite well because like I'd go to Sheffield a bit and David Hurst, I still see Hursty and John Sheridan now. So, but I've not seen Des since he left Sheffield and went. I think he's back in Nottingham where he lives.
That is a cracking story. That's brilliant. Is that John Sheridan, as in he's manager now of Chesterfield, I think.
He was, yeah.
Oh, is he?
Great
Is that
player, Sheridan.
Did he play for Wednesday, did he?
Yeah, Ron Atkinson signed him just before we had that good side. He got the winner in 1991 against Man United in the League Cup final.
And was this 94? Were you in the Premier League at this point?
Yeah, we got relegated in 2000 from the Premier League.
So you were there for the beginning of the Prem?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Wednesday in the third division in the 70s. I was. Did you watch the Sunderland Till I Die?
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Did you see the second series?
Yeah.
When that commercial guy's saying we've got to break the record, and he quoted the record for the third division attendance is 46,000, but it's not. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday Sheffield United Boxing Day, and it's 49,300.
Oh, interesting.
And I kept screaming at me, telling you're wrong. It's 49,000. It's Wednesday. Oh,
that's a great documentary, isn't it?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
It's so sad. I feel so sorry for them, them fans, because it's like, that's all they do. And there's a bit where they talk about how they could, in that city, the motivation to get up and go to work is to just go to Sunderland on the weekend. And they've just had it so bad for the last sort of 6-7 years. Well,
you're good at football, Charlie. It's just you kind of live for Saturdays, don't you?
Yeah.
As an actor, if you're unemployed all week and you're not getting a job, or I just love going to the football on Saturday, seeing all my pals from home, and I'd like to reiterate, I'm not an hooligan. I've just got caught up in things beyond my control a couple of times.
Well, that's how we actually met, didn't we? Like that, we met from going to the footy.
Yeah, I remember that day. Wednesday we were playing at Hull City. It was in April, wasn't it? 2018.
Yeah, a couple of years
ago. I heard you and your pals behind me on the train talking, and I heard Barnet mentioned, and I had a look in the paper. I thought, oh, Barnet playing today, and were you going to Grimsby?
Grimsby, yeah.
Yeah, so we got talking. It turns out we knew people, we had mutual friends, other actors, didn't we?
It's crazy. That's it's one of the reasons I've wanted to do this podcast, and that just proves that it's not just a game, because we've met and we've become friends, and it's all been from football and traveling up and down the country. So I think it's a great thing to like.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a special way to meet someone, that we had so many people. We all knew different people, and you worked with one of my mates, and
Ben McGregor.
Yeah, Ben, if you're listening.
Great lad, Ben.
But it's like you said, every weekend. Like, I know, wow, it's hard, it's bad to say this, because obviously jobs are hard to come by in this industry, but and when you do the jobs, it's amazing. It's the best thing in the world. But there are days where, when I was doing my play that I've just finished, where I'd wake up on a Saturday and go, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got a matinee. No footy.
You'd rather be going to watch Barnet, wouldn't you? Rather than doing a matinee. I think matinees are horrendous.
I just, if there was no matinees, I've worked out, if there was no matinee, I'd be able to go to the home games and get there for the 5:30 call, or 6 o'clock call. But it's just gutting, because you're doing the show and you're loving it, but all this in the back of your mind every time you come off the scene is, what's the score? You must know what it's like running up into the dressing room.
I was on stage the night that Wednesday lost the replay against Arsenal in '93. I'd been to the Saturday game and then gone to the theatre to do the play. I was working at the Cockpit Theatre in London. And then it was a Thursday evening, the replay, and I couldn't go to the match. So I was backstage with the radio, and when Wednesday equalised, apparently the cast heard me on stage, me cheering, me going crazy. And I remember we got in the pub after the game, and the game was just nearing the end of extra time. It looked like penalties, and Arsenal, Andy Linegan scored with the last second header. So I was just sat at the bar, catatonic. I didn't move for about 10 minutes. I couldn't believe it, you know what I mean? But I've got another funny theatre story about Sheffield Wednesday. So I was doing a play in Leicester in 1995. And Wednesday, I had a cup game against Wolves. And we drew at Hillsborough. And the replay was at Wolves in the midweek. And it was on TV. And I was doing this play. And I had a big chunk in the play where I wasn't on for like 40, 45 minutes, which included plus the interval. So I had an hour off stage. So I'd figured the pub outside the stage door in Leicester, I could go and watch part of the game. So I've gone to the pub, and I never knew this until then. But obviously, the stage manager writes up a report of the show, don't they? Mm-hmm. And as an actor, you're not supposed to leave the theatre in case you get an accident and nobody knows where you are. Blah blah blah. So I've gone to the match, come back, done the play, and in the bar after, the stage manager came up to me and she says, "Oh, Tom, I've got to put you on show report." I says, "Why?" She said, "You left the theatre. That's not allowed. You can't leave the theatre." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." She said, No, you can't do that. I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, it was a draw and there's going to be a replay next week and I'll be leaving the theatre next week."
Did you do it again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. The things you do for football, eh?
Oh, mate. So my mate John, the Leeds fan, his parents lived in Nairobi. So in 1995 at Christmas, John's invited me and my ex-wife at the time to Kenya for a holiday. So we've done the Masai Mara, the safari and all that. And we were having 5 days in Mombasa at the beach. So there's an overnight train from Nairobi that you get about 3 o'clock Saturday tea time, and you arrive in Mombasa about 6 o'clock in the morning. It only goes about 25, 30 miles an hour. So that actual Saturday night, Sheffield Wednesday were playing Leeds United at Hillsborough. It was just before Christmas. And I don't know if you've been to Africa, Charlie, but I worked in Africa. I worked in Zimbabwe in '97. I did Soldier the last season. We worked in Zimbabwe. So this meant I've been to Africa twice in 3 years. And at that point, every African kid, every Kenyan kid, every Zimbabwean kid you met was a Man United fan. The Premier League had not become what it is now, and Man United were the team. So every kid supported Man United. No matter any African you talk to, I'm a Man United. So anyway, we get this train, and we're checking into the hotel on the Sunday morning. We don't know any football results because there's no mobile phones or what have you. So the guy's checking us in at the hotel. There's me, John, my ex-wife, and John's sister. So I said to the guy, I said, "You wouldn't happen to know any English football results, would you?" And the guy behind the jump, he says, "Yes, my team beat Leeds United 6-2. So me and John have looked at one another and gone, "Who's your team?" You're Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, my God.
The only African on the whole continent of Africa who scored Wednesday. He was checking us in our hotel. I had a shirt in my suitcase. I give him a Wednesday shirt.
What are the chances of that?
I know, mate. It was hilarious.
How and why? Was he a Wednesday fan?
I don't know. He did probably tell me that it's 25 years ago, but I just remember him saying, "My team beat Leeds United 6-2.
Anybody in the whole of Africa that you could have asked? He's probably the only person in Africa who supports Wednesday.
I know. Yeah, I give him a shirt, and he was wandering around the hotel with his Wednesday shirt on later in the week.
That's class. Well, I've not been to Africa, to be fair. What's it like out there?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, when I went on Soldier, I was in season 7. Like Robson and Jerome had long gone by then, and I think we killed it off. It was me, Chris Gascoigne, who's now in Coronation Street, Danny Cunningham, who played Sean Ryder in 24 Hour Party People. Our 3 characters were like best pals in it, so we became really good pals as well. But they took us to Zimbabwe for one of the episodes where one of the main characters gets killed. It was like a coup d'etat they were filming in a. It was called Zucchini. It was a fake country name made up, but it was unbelievable. Zimbabwe, what a beautiful country. I went to Vic Falls, Whitewater after down to Zambezi. It was brilliant.
So I've been asking each of my guests, all the listeners will know by now, by the time it gets to the end of the podcast, we finish off with a little question. If you were to play a footballer on screen, past or present, and in a biopic of their life, who are you going to play and why?
I'm going to pick a footballer from the 50s who you probably won't have heard of, called Derek Dooley.
Derek Dooley?
Yeah.
Tell us about his story. Why would you play him then?
So Derek Dooley was born in 1928. He played for Wednesday for a season and a half, 1951, 52, 52, 53. He broke into, he'd been at Lincoln. He was a Sheffield lad, Wednesday fan. He'd been at Lincoln. Wednesday signed him from Lincoln. And his career was 64 games, 63 goals. And midway through, I think October in 1951, Wednesday were kind of mid-table in the old second division. And Dooley got in the team. He was only like 21, 22. And he went to score 46 goals from 30 games. And Wednesday won the Division 2 title that season. He was 6'3", he had red hair, and he was like unstoppable. Like my dad and my uncles would all talk about Dooley in the 50s. And the question was, not as Dooley scored today. It was how many has Dooley scored today. There was one famous game. Notts County had an England centre half called Leon Lutti, and I think Derek Dooley scored 5 against him. So he was like the big deal. He was going to be England's centre forward. And the following season, Wednesday in the Division 1, and he'd scored at that point, it got to Valentine's Day, February, and he'd scored 16 goals in 24 games, which is not a bad return for his first, he's only a young lad. And he broke his leg at Deepdale. They took him to hospital, set his leg, and one of the nurses realised that he had no feeling in his toes, and his feet were his right foot was like ice. He developed gangrene in his leg, and he had to have his leg chopped off.
You're joking.
So he was 23, 63 goals, 64 games, 23, and he had to have his leg amputated. So Wednesday had a benefit match for him, 55,000 people. It was the first game at Hillsborough with floodlights. That's when they opened their floodlights. And he was well loved by everybody in Sheffield. So in the 70s, he became, in the 60s, he went on to become Wednesday's commercial manager. And then in the early 70s, he got the manager's job. He was manager of Wednesday for about 2.5 seasons. Pardon?
I'm just looking at him now. So I just searched him on the internet. So he became manager of Wednesday, did he?
Yeah, about 71. We were terrible in the 70s. I think we finished 10th, his best season. But on Christmas Eve, 1973, Wednesday sacked him, and it was a massive story. It was like one of Wednesday's darkest periods, darkest moments they've ever done as a club. You know what I mean? To sack this legend on Christmas Eve. So Dooley went out of the game for a while. He vowed never to return to Hillsborough. And then a few years later, Sheffield United offered him a job as their commercial manager. And he became really well loved and respected at Bramall Lane, and he rose to become their chairman. So by the time he retired, he was chairman of Sheffield United.
No way.
Yeah, and in 1992, 20 years after he'd been sacked, he finally came back to Hillsborough for a night game, Wednesday versus United. And it was the first time he'd set foot back in Hillsborough. And I think the film would start with Derek Dooley in the tunnel, not knowing what reception he's going to get from the crowd. And he's in the tunnel. This is the first scene of the film, and he's waiting to come onto the pitch to be introduced. And he's having flashbacks about his career, and you know what I mean. I was at that game, and when he did come out, he got a standing ovation from all 4 sides of the ground. And
that was in '92.
Yeah, '92. And then Sheffield United they've got a statue of him outside Bramall Lane.
Yeah, I've just seen that here.
Yeah, and he died in 2008. I think he was about 78, and like it was a massive funeral in Sheffield City Centre. Alex Ferguson was there, like everybody from football was there. But he was very well loved, so he's one of the few figures who crossed the divide in Sheffield football.
That's incredible.
I think he'd make a brilliant film, you know what I mean?
Yeah, God, that sounds amazing. I'd play him
as an old man.
Yeah, when you said 6'3" red hair, I mean, casting's not great, is it?
No. Well, if you read about him, apparently the average height for males was 5'7" then in the early 50s. So he would have been massive. He would have been huge to mark, and he was like a bulldozer, apparently.
If he didn't have his injury, do you think he would have gone on to be in England great?
Well, I only can go on what my dad and my uncles said and so on, but I imagine he would have been in the England team, at least given a chance with figures like that.
I mean, yeah, 62 and 61. That's
unbelievable.
Pretty good going, really.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to work out if he didn't get injured, would he have been in the
54 would have been the next World Cup. 54 would have been in. Is that when Germany won it? When they beat?
So 54, he would have been 1954. He would have been 24, right?
Yeah. Well, 26. Yeah, he would have been in. He probably would have been in the England squad then. Yeah.
He wouldn't have made it to the 66 though, would he? The winning.
No, he'd have been 58, maybe 54 and 58, probably. But he collided with Preston's goalkeeper, and apparently he'd got a cut in the back of his calf earlier in the game. And the stuff that they used as an antifreeze on the pitch had got in the cut. He got infected from some antifreeze, and that's what caused the gangrene in his leg.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. It'd be a good movie, and I'd love to see you play it, Tom, to be fair.
And the other player I always wanted to be growing up, he didn't play for Wednesday, but was Billy Bremner.
Who's that? Billy
Bremner captained Leeds, that great Leeds team in the 60s and 70s. But Billy Bremner was ginger haired as well, and he was like really small, Scottish. But he was number 4, and my birthday is the 4th of December, so I always loved Billy Bremner.
Love that.
I can't believe you've just said, who's that?
I don't know, mate, that's way before my time.
I know, man, but, you know, history, you've got to know your history, Charlie.
Billy Bremner, Billy Bremner, wait, do I know Billy Bremner?
There's a statue outside Ellen Road of Billy Bremner.
So do you just pick people you want to play who are ginger and got statues outside grounds?
Yeah. Sounds like it. There was a film a few years back called The Fix. When 3 Wednesday players in the early 60s were involved in a famous betting scandal. And Paul Greengrass, the film director, he made a film of it. And I went up for one of the parts in it. But there was another ginger-haired footballer in it called Tony Kay. And Jason Isaacs played Tony Kay. And I was like, I want to be Tony Kay.
If there's any producers listening who are going to make a film about a ginger footballer, Tom's your man.
Yeah.
Tom's your man, yeah. Maybe in a few years you could do Skulls as well.
Oh, Skulls, eh?
I'm just listing off ginger footballers now.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was great, man. I hope it's successful, and hope to see you sometime. Up the bees, up the owls.
Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you're going to get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co, podgo.co.